I almost forgot this one. Is it true that there are people that bashed you in public, especially on social media, and came secretly to you to ask you for assistance? Or surely the past 5 minutes is wondering who's this guy that number one speaks like questioning on basic, but for somebody that is watching and that is asking themselves who you are, if you had to sum it up, who would you say you are? 21st June 2022. This is after the LTI. When you wake up, and surely people are people that saw it, that are close to you, that saw it first, or me being one of them. I think you were going to America, eh?
Yes, I was on my way to it.
So it was at that time.
Yeah.
When you read that post, what comes to mind? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
I think it's the nature of life, number one. And I think the one thing is we never realize as much, and I've come to realize this as myself.
I don't want to make it too churchy. I also wanted to have a space more to just get to speak about you and your life. But then officially, sir, let me welcome you to the first episode of season 2. Hopefully, we pray. Phakama Podcast. It's nice to be with you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Well, this is podcasting. We don't necessarily need to start in any other way besides this one. But thank you so much for availing your time.
No, I appreciate it, and I'm honored. I didn't even know what the first episode, season 2, and all of that. So if the season goes well, and if you are motivated, I would already know. It's like they say, when you lay the foundation, then into the
follow.
So no, I'm humbled, and it's really an honor and a pleasure for me to be here after it's been a year and a half since we've been trying to do this.
We've been trying to get this episode underway, and I think also the expectation of it was kind of good, because it helped me to provoke those that I was like, I'm gonna sit with them soon. So you must be ready. So that was nice. But thank you so much for coming. So I know I saw you. When was the last time I saw you? Convention, East Conference Convention.
Yes.
But Paiza got the privilege of sitting with you. I only had 2 minutes. We spent the entire Sunday in Paiza. But thank you so much for coming. This is outside me being a friend, a brother, and whatsoever. But how are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm tired. I don't know what happens at this last quarter of the year where it just whacks everything out of you. But beyond that, I'm okay. I often say that any opportunity to see the sunrise and set, to feel the wind in your hair, the opportunity to just talk to someone is something to be grateful for. So on that level of things, I'm okay, and I'm grateful for that. But outside of that, I don't want to lie. You are dragging yourself 24/7. But
is it intentional though?
What?
Are you intentionally working so hard and draining yourself so hard? Or is it that you find yourself in a space where there's work, there's this, then you need to do things? Or it's intentional that I'm going to do the hard work?
Well, I think it's a two-way thing, right? So I think it's the nature of life, number one. And I think the one thing is we never realize as much, and I've come to realize this as myself, and even though I'm saying this now, chances are quite high 3 months down the line, I'll say this again, because we're like that as people. You get tired, and you know how the person is 3 parts in one, and there's certain parts of you that become tired without you even being aware of that, so it comes from just deep emotional strain, deep mental strain that you might not have dealt with, but because we only feel it from a physical perspective, we then think it's a matter of, hey, you've been busy, you've been intentionally busy, and you've been overworked. And whilst that plays a role, I think it's those other parts that happen. So for me, I think right now it's that mental and emotional tiredness that comes, and then you just feel it in a physical way. I mean, we had a really heightened period of time at work, but then that came and that passed and so sharp. So I think it's just the other mental aspects, and sometimes it comes from even things that you don't necessarily work towards, or things that you realize. It's just the usual, oh my goodness, when you're thinking over time and when you're navigating all these other things. So I can't say that it's an intentional thing from a busy perspective, but I can say it's those things that are not as explicit sometimes that form part of the 3-in-1 of an individual.
If you had to give us an idea of your most busiest weekend, what does it look like?
Well, Lord, hey, my most busiest weekend now. So obviously, for those that would not know, I used to be the Episcopal President of the YPD of the AME Church, which is the equivalent of a national youth president.
Yeah. And
so my busiest weekend would be on the road, traveling in and between church commitments and this conference here, this conference there, following whatever Episcopal mandate or invite was given and such. Now, post that, you would have thought that I would still have, I'd have some free time. But it really is not the case, and I guess certain things, latella wherever you are. But first half of the year, because of work and the monumental work that we had to do, it was filled with literally work. They'd be working Monday to Monday, Friday watches, and then Saturday and Sunday you're at a training and you're doing this and you're doing that, preparing for the big day. So that was what the busiest weekend was. So anything from about March to May of this year was just
too hectic.
Then post that, the busiest weekend really has just been one that's been filled with church activity. Nothing too hectic though. It's just the traveling, a couple of conventions here and there. But that first half of the year, that was the busiest one. That was the busiest one. Because literally, how Monday what longer, Sunday maybe at least to chase at around 3, but you're back in again on Monday, and then in between that, I need to make sure that I nap and then wake up for the midnight, the graveyard slot on radio as well for my social commentary. So
which is a lot.
Yeah,
we're still going to get into all those that the church side, and the work side. But for somebody that is watching this episode and for surely the past 5 minutes is wondering who's this guy that number one speaks like questioning on basic. But for somebody that is watching and that is asking themselves who you are, if you had to sum it up, who would you say you are?
I don't like this question, and I never liked this even for school when they were like, it's a speech about yourself. I hate it with a passion, but just for the disclaimer, just as a disclaimer and as a record, on the record rather, for anyone who is wondering, first and foremost, this is my voice. I guess what I give flu. I'm not trying.
So we're not imagining this guy at 5 years old. This is my child.
No,
at 5 years old,
No, at 5. A funny story about the voice, but we'll get to that. But I always have to put this disclaimer because it's so weird when people see Pizinyana like myself and then what do you Medisa and they're like, and you see the confusion on their face. But LRK, Letlhogonolo Mosuwe, is first and foremost because I am deep rooted in my faith, and faith. I was brought up in a prayerful and believing family. I am, and it sounds cliche, but I say it because it's a part of my DNA. I'm a child of the Most High. I often say, though, that I'm a sinner who just keeps on trying. So, and this is really based on the fact that based on what people see, they assume that, oh no, he's got it all figured out. He's perfect. He's this, and upstanding citizen. And I never try to portray myself as something that I'm not. But beyond that, a sinner who keeps on trying. I'm a son. I'm a brother. I'm a friend. I'm a brother biologically. But certainly, I think being a firstborn, we're only 3 boys, and having been a brother to my younger siblings, I guess I've become somewhat of it's something that I don't know, ended up being a part of who I was in every sphere or space that I find myself in, that big brother role, even to people who are older than me, taking up that role. But I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a grandson, I'm a nephew, but I'm a friend, I'm a partner, but I'm just literally a human that's trying to be. I love deeply, I care deeply. I am not as I always seem serious, but people don't realize, and this is something my best friend once said to me, that people don't realize that they see the silly side of you when you're comfortable, because everyone sees Robocop, where they see
when you come and approach, you must be
you must be formal, you must be, you must make sure that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, and you know the difference between a pronoun and a preposition and all those things, and so that's that. But really, I'm just a human who's trying to be. I care deeply, I love deeply, but I believe in the power of the human race and the human being. I'm someone who carries a lot of hurt. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm perfect. I'm someone who carries a lot of hurt, but I'm someone who's also learning the art of grace.
Yeah.
And that's literally
how
who I am.
Sum it up.
Yeah, that's how I would sum it up.
A lot of people, think that you are a serious person.
Yeah.
And maybe it's the privilege that some of us are blessed to have.
Yeah.
That it was after your last convention that I saw fully the other side. I remember there was a conversation that we were having on the call, and you said to me, now I no longer have a position, so I'm no longer bound by certain things that were binding me at that particular time. I'm still bound by morality and such things as my values. But I remember, I won't say the conversation, but our conversation was, that you could hear that, no man, there's a certain gown that this person is no longer wearing. I remember we said some of the most funniest things in that thing. But to be honest, I can attest. Once you're comfortable, you tend to then become the person that is not the Robocop. You tend to become the person that is not the Robocop. So what do you do for occupation? For those that do not know, they may be seeing you as cheese boy. Cheese boy. But for occupation, what is it that you do? What is it that your career choice is?
So I am an international relations and political sciences graduate, and so that's what I studied. That's what I love. Like I said, I love the power of the human space, and I believe in humanities as a faculty so much, because I think that's where you learn. You can learn systems and whatever, but when you learn the human being,
that's
you control the world. So that's what I am, and so I find myself practicing that through the work that I do in electoral governance, specifically electoral operations and logistics. So I happen to have the proud honor of working for the Independent Electoral Commission of South Africa at the provincial.
One of the most crucial parts of this country.
I am telling you the role and responsibility of being a part of something that gives what we have, this imperfect democracy, this imperfect republic that strives to want to do better, I hope, to know that you're part of a system that kind of strengthens the ideals and values about that. It's a beautiful thing. So that's what I do. Then I also happen to be a social and political commentator, social and political commentator, with most of my time spent doing that on Power FM. I have a weekly slot, midnight to 1 a.m. or 12:30 to 1:30 a.m. on the Power Zone with Letlhogonolo, where we just really talk about a number of issues, a number of stories that made headlines, and just a reflection of the news that really caught our attention in the week. We look forward to what will come from those, and just have general chats about the state of those types of news and what it means for the common man on the ground. And so I've been blessed to do that every Monday for the last 2 years. And as a result of that, it's really opened channels for me to be able to do that on other shows as well. So one way or the other, it's almost, it's opened the channels for me to then be able to feature on other shows during the daytime, lunchtime, mid-morning, over the weekend, breakfast as well. And so that's literally who I am, and that's what I do.
Oh, let's go back.
This is the thing, right? Everyone always says, how because people come, but no one is from. So I often tell people I'm Joburg, born and bred. So Joburg, quite literally, it's all I know. Outside of where I went to high school, but it's all I know. Beyond that, I would obviously say that Deep Kloof, which is where
they took me. I live, I temporarily live in Soweto.
Yes.
The boys took me and showed me your Greenies house.
Yes. So that's where I live. If you go through some photo albums and whatnot, like I said, it's a little room. There's a picture of me in my Superman cape. That's my favorite superhero of all time, by the way. Before I extend and all of that, but let's go. It's the one place that I know. My mom is from Deep Kloof, my dad is from Garangua, which is in Pretoria, but it's further. It's Pretoria nonetheless. But so that's where I grew up.
So stuck in between the two places.
More or less, but certainly, like I say, most of the time it was spent in Joburg, spent good Deep Kloof.
Do you think people want to remove that aspect of your life, like the fact that how we would take it as if sometimes I don't know, like you don't have a tough experience. I'll make an example, which I shouldn't. I'll make an example. Papa is a regular kasi, but there's absolutely a huge difference in terms of the lifestyles and everything with all my friends. So the mentality would be, if you grew up very privileged, you lack something. Like it's like for almost every story to be such impactful and so inspiring, it always has to come from a place of I didn't have nothing. Do you think that's also the case with you, that people would say for your story to make sense to me, you need to have come from Garangua, just like your father or your mother like Deep Kloof? Do you think that's the case with you?
Oh no, definitely. That is definitely the case, and what a lot of people then take from that is the experience or the saying that so, and a lot of people would even think to themselves, no, what do you mean, you don't look like that? I had a conversation once with people, something so ridiculous, and then they were like, what? And I tell them, the problem is, just because you assume a certain thing or a certain project, of course I'm not going to get your Makwenya or officing or whatever. Everything has a time and place. And I'm not going to deny being particular about certain things or whatever. But there is that thing. Like, I know there are people who believe or whatever. And I tell them, but Deep Kloof. And so much so a number of people are often then surprised when I would be sitting with my family, my maternal family mostly, and we'd be talking about so and so, and I'd be able to say, oh, that is Mangmangonabula, Kapek opposite, Mara, 2 houses to the right, and Barre and whatever, and then it really perplexes, especially even some of the, my younger family members, and it's like, and I'm like, exactly, because literally, you don't need to, and if you go to my grandmother's hood or whatever, chances are quite high I can go to a number of houses in my grandmother's neighborhood, and they would be able to say, yes, Ramotseva, because of the fact that and so there is always that thing that people perceive that because of where you are or based on what they see of you, that then there cannot be a certain aspect or a certain level of things that come from so for a lot of people, oh no, like I say, so no, preposition, dot your I's, cross your T's, and you must be able to know where to put a comma and where to put a full stop, even in your enunciation. And that's just it's a people thing, because and it's a black people thing that I've always had conversations.
I also struggle to get that.
There's this thing where your blackness, we want unity as black people, and this is a belief I've long had, but our unity only comes in the ability for you to be able to have struggled to a certain extent. If you know not what it is to do this, that, and the other, then
you simply don't qualify.
So there's now a barometer, there's a yardstick, a measuring stick on are you black enough? Are you do you know Mojerezo? And what people fail to understand is, in the same way, and this is what really perplexes me, is in the same way where everyone says stay in your lane, slay in your lane, and all those other things. The same thing applies regardless of your situation. Yes, our struggles, but there was struggle. What my struggle and what your struggle may look like are two different things, but it does not take away from the human experience to say, no, case in point. A lot of people would be, they probably would not think of the fact that as a guy, I know how to do grocery shopping, I know how to iron for myself, I know how to, and these are very archaic things, very menial things, but basic, that every human being, regardless of gender identification, should be able to do. But for a lot of people, the assumption is, having grown up in a certain level of privilege, and mind you, even this notion of privilege, it's really, it's very, I want to say, misinformed, because a lot of it's privilege in the context of someone else, or it's privilege in the context of how I holela kasi, because in a sekasi, but sharp fine in what you would know as suburbia, but it does not mean I am detached from the kasi experience. Literally every Friday, my parents knew it was a tradition for hey, pakan peke, get in blue. Get a Sunday. You like the holiday they don't even play games.
We're going to tap in a little bit into that, into the aspect of the privileges, especially in the church. I want to play a game with you.
All right.
I want to play a game with you, but before that, I wanted to, and I also, did you see that I said people must give me questions to
I saw that, and in my mind I wanted to ask you prior, but I wondered, like, are people actually going to put in and throw in some questions, or like are people as interested in this thing as they may, as you are making it to seem, or are you just trying to stroke his ego?
I'm hoping that I'm going to mention either like tell me the words that come to mind when I mention the following things that I'm going to mention. There are only 4.
All right.
I think. Yeah. Then I think we would get underway into the conversation. That I think nice that I think was. The first one is The West Conference YPD.
The West Conference YPD.
Yeah.
My home, but also not a easy home. Yeah.
You remember the scripture that says that the one place that Jesus struggled to do miracles is his home?
Yes.
Do you think it's also that kind of a thing?
I ironically enough, it was in about a meeting that I had with, was it about 2022? Yeah, about mid-2022, that I had with one of my spiritual parents.
Yeah.
Where I came to fully realize that, because I never understood what's what, you know. And I remember I would often say that it was only at a certain point towards my exit where it felt like home and I felt comfortable about it. But yeah, I mean, there's also the other scripture that says a prophet is not accepted in his own home or something along those lines. So that's why I laugh. But it's my home. It's the only conference that I've ever known. But yeah, it's my home.
What comes to mind when I say social media?
A beautiful instrument, and it's something that it's a beautiful instrument, something that I used to love, and something that I'll be very honest with, because of certain experiences that I ended up thoroughly having a hate for. If anyone were to go onto my Facebook profile circa 2012, okay, I cannot say anything before 16, no more like that nonsense.
Yeah. People must not go
So hey, Buma, when you write a word with a smaller case letter, and then an uppercase letter, but anything from about circa 2012, 2011, 2012, going to about 2014, 15, I used social media as an outlet to share my thoughts, to share my ideations, and then hey, and literally for the last 10, and literally for the last 10 years, it's a space that I've actually come to despise. But now, based on some of the work that I do now, I need to tap in, but I really do it at a very entry level basis. So for example, whenever I'm in studio, I go live for engagement, obviously retweeting where I'd be speaking, where I'd be doing something. When they ask me where can we follow you, ironically enough, there was some work that one did first time doing television work, and it was social media that helped these people contact me to be like, oh, we need you for this, that, and the other. And so I've had to come and relearn it and reuse it, but at a very functional level. But I'll be very honest with you, loved it between 2012 and about 2014, and literally from about 2014 to date, absolutely hate it.
Letlhogonolo Mosuwe.
Come on. My girl, that one. My mother. My girl, like, loved one, like,
close to your heart.
Borna. We fight a lot, as would be expected, because now remember, she doesn't have any girls in the house until we all go off and get married and all those.
I relate because Lorna Ritre.
What alohanya, so any and everything we talk about, and we feed off of one another. We want to work with one another in the church. But that one, and she often tells people, and I don't have friends. My friends are my siblings, are my partner, and my sons. Obviously, she just says the others just for she's actually making reference to me. But
such an amazing mother. Great when I was with her at the East Annual Conference.
Yeah.
I lost my wallet and I went, Mama, I lost my wallet.
She actually wanted me to ask you if you found it.
I found it.
Did you find it?
Yeah, I actually did find it. And then President Last went to the presiding elders and made the announcement. I was so sad that I couldn't go to her. The last one is 2022 LTI.
Unconquered.
Yeah.
Unconquered.
Leadership Training Institute.
Leadership Training Institute. For those that are AMEs, this is the pinnacle youth event of the church. At a national level, you get the 5 conferences that cover about 6 of the provinces in South Africa. They come together to learn, to fellowship. And I'll be very honest with you, and like I said, I'm conquered, and that's what I remember. And I remember the beautiful things about that, because it was a really great experience. Did it have its hiccups? Everything did, but everything that built up to that, come on, I
remain absolutely
great.
I put that as I'm not a person to prepare, but for this one I had to prepare. So I put that one as a leading one to the whole conversation that we ought to have.
Okay.
I have it even on my phone. I want to read it.
Yeah, man.
I want to read it. June 21, 2022. AME Church South Africa member, Reverend Pontlekwabe posts. When we are ready, we need to address this issue. I was very shocked to see this. Saturday when I arrived at the LTI, I even had to check if I am at the correct place, because our kids were busy running around Kamasela Lemeropa. Mind you, it was during the service, and other services were outside. I honestly felt for the directors who had no idea what is going on with these kids, and they had to step in. Other kids are copying what these other kids are doing. This is so wrong, and it's disturbing. Our kids need to be called to order. Kopalesan Tocha, let's separate issues. One must decide ubatla effing when le khone. Khosa itzwa motswaka bele. These kids, they didn't need to be prayed for, they needed to be rebuked to stop what they are doing. Or Batung, is it an in thing? With that being read, 21st June 2022, this is after the LTI. When you wake up, and surely people are people that saw it, that are close to you, that saw it first, or me being one of them. I think you were going to America, ne?
Yes, remember? I was on my way to it.
So it was at that time.
Yeah.
When you read that post, what comes to mind? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Yes,
But also unconquered, no.
And mind you, unconquered Gawe on herself had its own small issues, you know.
Yeah.
You know how you guys are.
I know how they guys are.
You want to pay X amount and think you're gonna be at the Ritz-Carlton or the Marriott Hotel, and and this is in no way, it comes with the territory. But I'm reading this, and now.
Where are you when you read this? At home?
No, at the time I was in between packing and going to the airport, because we closed 2 days. The LTI finished 2 days early on the Sunday.
Because I remember our call was before you went on the...
So the 21st in the afternoon, I was flying out at around 3. So I saw that. But I didn't even see it, because at that time I had already deleted your socials and all those other things. So I'm being told about it. And as I see it, and as the day goes on, I'm being told, hey, hoso. And now, in and between all of that, prior to that, there was already just a whole lot of hullabaloo on the socials, talking about how Unconquered was a prison and all of that, because we made the ladies sleep one side and the guys sleep one side, and it's just like what?
They want you to publicly allow something that is not publicly allowed.
Exactly. And I'm like,
but I was also part of the people that were angry.
Exactly. And I'm like, it doesn't change the fact, because whether you like it or not, we all know what's going to happen. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's not my mother's house where we were. It's not my house. So obviously I had to comply exactly. So there were all those things. Now when you get to this point, and you now have this issue of two conflating ideas. When we look at it, when we take all the emotion out of it, and when we take rationale and thought and thought into this, you have two supposed conflating ideas meeting at a head at this event. And at the time, it was a very emotional, I'll be very honest, the entire Saturday morning experience, because this was our first time we met since 2019 because of the pandemic. And Unconquered wasn't just a theme for vibes, it was what we had to instill in ourselves following what we had lost. I mean, by the time we got to 18 June 2022, we had lost about 14 young people. We had lost 14 young people, so that would take anything out of anyone. And so it was not just a theme for vibes, but it was an essence that we needed to live with. And so we had a very emotionally charged memorial moment of remembrance and celebration. And I'll be very honest to say the spirit was high, and as a result thereof, the ensuing aspects really caused, a lot of commotion. And of course, at the time, with everything that took place, we had to make sure that we control the situation. Now, you're trying to control a situation that is, and I'll be very honest, as an individual, as an uninitiated individual, it is beyond me. You know everything, you know everything up until a certain point. So there are those that must deal with that, and then there's that which I must do as an administrator to be able to say, let us then put our heads together to calm the situation and make things go on. So when you then see this, and when you then realize that everything was under control, then you see a post such as that, it really exasperated me, but it exacerbated the situation in terms of now it's making and anyone would have the right to make a comment around that, but the issue about social media is people often mistake the opinions that they make for fact. And so what this thought was then taken to be a fact without the full understanding of what without the full seeking to see how do we find one another. And so seeing that, and of course now because it's social media, this was the intended. It skyrocketed because now everyone else is now thinking of this.
I remember what happened. Like, for those that might not know, we're speaking about an issue whereby a particular pastor made comments about the spiritual things that were happening at the LTI. I remember when I saw that post, because now the thing with me was that at that time I was schooling with the pastor. I was schooling with the pastor, and when I saw the post, first person, I'm sure I'm the first person that called. I called and I said, I'm not one to give you an opinion or whatever, but I'm just saying, please try to remove the post. I'm sure the 19 administration will contact you and you guys will sort it out. And me and her had a lengthy conversation. One thing about me, I'm respectful. A lengthy conversation that is respectful. Whatever that happened afterwards is what happened. And I was going through the post and the comments. There's a time whereby the YPDs are now starting to tag one another in that post. And that is when it now goes really out of this thing. Now, I remember me and you had about truly a 4-hour conversation, a deep conversation, a long one. But do you think the 19 actually handled, I have my own opinions, but I'm not here for my own opinions. Do you think the 19 actually handled that whole situation good? I know that later on you guys had the gathering that had the WMS and the YPD on Zoom, I think. But do you think the administration led by you did justice in how it handled that situation and the aftermath of it?
I will say yes. And I'll say it within the context of I did what an administrator had to do. I sat with my chief administrators. People wanted us to comment. I wasn't elected by Facebook. I used Facebook as a medium to campaign and get people to believe in the vision of my desire to serve them. But Facebook didn't elect me. And to go and find yourself, because like you say, people tagged, and I mean from that post, people tagged one another, and then the post now became about how ineffective the leadership is and ineffective, and how all of a sudden it was our fault. I mean, I remember at some point, but people were like, it's a problem when you have, people like that leading. That's why these kind of things will happen. And for me, service and everything that we did was always to ensure that we're in a safe space and a space of love. Hence the notion of the power of us. It was, there's no Musuwe, there's no Moloi. It's without each other. And so what we did is, once we then landed in Atlanta, we called a meeting with the creator.
Nice life problem.
No, I went to a church gathering. So I went from one church thing to another.
Yeah.
So we then went, and then we sat with the president and the director, and we called members of the board, and we had a discussion. We called the bishop, the supervisor, elders of the church, and we had a discussion about it. And the end result, prior to that, we then made the mother body. And I appreciate, because the one thing people don't realize is, because a lot of people would be like, why are we hearing from the mother body and not from them and whatever. Sometimes there are things where you need Motswadi, exactly, and you only can. And for the mother body to say that, it's not to have said that we did not say anything or we did not do anything. For them to say that there was an agreement, but you also need, as an administrator, as a leader of an organization, you know when you have to say something and when you don't have to say something. But people only realize that once they are in the role. But we handled it well, because we had to now think about what was said, who said it, how best do we deal with it, ensuring that, number one, the dignity of the church and the organization and anyone really is still kept intact, but also making sure that we deal with things and what happened as a result thereof. And this is something people don't realize, and this is why I say we handled it well. We dealt with it, we spoke, and we gave them conferences the ability to go and deal with it. What happened from that is Zoom webinars were held in the church around having the conversation of when religion, if you will, meets with this notion of cultural or African spirituality, though the terms are still very...
I don't classify it as African spirituality, but
for lack of a better word, we had a number of organizations having that. It became conversations, it became topics in seminars in the following year at conference level in 2023. It became, we addressed it in our reports and such, but it's something that even started being spoken about at a local level. Even pastors started talking about it. So then that tells you then what, in the midst of everything, if we had then rushed to comment and say, we would have then missed the opportunity. And obviously people won't see it that way. But we handled it well, because for us at the end of the day, it was about the dignity of all parties involved. It was about the dignity of the church and the organizations. And it was about ensuring that we come out better from it. Because the one thing is, you can't treat an unkind situation with unkindness. It's the same concept, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. So I would believe that, given the circumstances and what we could do, because the other thing is, remember, when you think about these two diametrically, supposedly, and I must always say supposedly diametrically opposed ideas, you always need to approach with rationale. If it's an emotive thing and you come with emotions, there's no sense that will come. There's no...
Do you think the pastor do you think the pastor should have apologized?
I think, and this is the challenging thing, I think, and I can never speak for an individual or such, I think that based on everything that happened and based on the fact that the matter in and of itself on the ground already on Saturday was dealt with. You know, it was contained and it was being dealt with. It was a very emotive space, but like I say, rationale had to prevail. So it did not need to find itself on the space that it did, right? What I do believe is a concern could have been raised, but raised in the relevant way, so that the discussion can also then be streamlined in the relevant way. So do I believe that harm was done? Yes. As to whether or not an apology should have been rendered, everyone would have needed to have made an apology, I think, because based on the fact that you were sharing an opinion, right? There are ways you could have shared it without necessarily saying this, that, and the other. I saw this the other day, and I would want us to have a conversation around it. The same people who then commented and attacked and whatever, even
because that would have stopped even us then from having opinions that we would then need to apologize for.
Yes, you know, I mean, that's someone's dignity. And the one thing that I believe strongly in is we can disagree. But the moment you don't realize that on the other side of my thoughts, the other side of my words, is someone's son, someone's partner, someone's friend. The moment I remove that aspect of humanity, then we've lost it. We've lost it.
And I think that's how me and you have managed to have genuine and... One thing about me and you is that when we started our relationship and brotherhood and friendship is that we started it based on, let's tell each other exactly what we think. And at the end of the day, we would be always willing to resolve whatever it was. That's why even when that happened, we were on call for hours and hours, and hours. And that was, I think, what you're saying now, to say in almost every debate or conversation, there must always be that thing of, I'm speaking to a human being. Because sometimes I feel like we want to impersonate our opinions. We want to become our opinions. I think which is something that I had to learn from, to say, just because of I'm saying Mosuwe must fall, doesn't mean now that I need to embody the spirit of Mosuwe falling. But that was a very tricky thing. That was a very tricky thing that you
it was. And the thing is, for a lot of people, because they don't see, they expect that because the fight is happening there, they expect for you to go there. It's the same as Koskolong, and I had to tell someone this. It's the same as Koskolong. You don't see the principal coming to the field, or whatever. The principal gets told by the prefects or the staff that
they get called.
Then they get sent to the office. Because why? At the time at which that happens, the principal must be an arbitrary body. The principal must be a solution. Who says it? Martin Luther King or Maya Angelou? Hate has caused a lot of problems in the world, but I have never seen it solve even a single one. And that's exactly that. So a lot of people would have thought that our silence would have, or let me say their expectation would have been that
she must also go on Facebook.
She must go, we must go, and we must, but what's that going to solve, if anything?
No, so that's why we elected you guys as our leaders, so that you guys do different from what we would do. Because I called her. I can't remember. I called her. I know another friends of mine called her. I was schooling with her, so at school it became such a huge thing, and stuff like that.
And people and sorry, it's that thing where I say the dignity of all those involved, because whatever was said, now you've got people forgetting that this is someone's mother, and someone's wife, and then an authority figure in the church as a pastor. You've got people literally taking it to hell, taking it to the streets. And it's like, that doesn't work that way.
Oh, that was something
else. That was a dark and very, and it hurt me, because I then thought to myself, if this is how we see And if this is how, and I remember having a conversation with the gents with whom I served, and I was like, if this is how people see this to be okay, and people can be okay with this, I worry, not because of any other thing, because I worry about if we lose our sense of humanity, those kind of things, they're not okay.
I want to, when I went through those comments, and also we are moving from the topic, but it also created some kind of a conflict within the clergy in itself. And now the pastors were also on two groups. There were those pastors that were supporting the kids and stuff. And in hindsight, when I look at it, I'm like, yeah, we are grateful to God that we needed to go through that. We needed to go through that to be where we are. To know that we must have the conversation. I think the 19 can still do better in terms of the conversations around that. We've now pushed to have other conversations that are not necessarily in the church. I think we must also try by all means to push this one through. But I want you to take me to the first time I saw you. Shaft. Shaft was one of the best there.
LTI 2019. Yes. I think I was first vice president.
Yeah, that was the first time you met.
Yes.
Yes, the
Festival of Life.
Shaft was. But besides that was the first time I met you. I remember one thing about me, my friends know it. I now will approach. Now I'm not afraid to approach. If I really see you as somebody that I would like to have a conversation with. I remember I approached at the door. I think it was adjournment of something at the door, and we spoke. I told you something. I was still coming up, and it was not really much. But it was from then that our friendship, brotherhood grew. A lot of people don't know actually how close we are. We don't talk every day, but they don't know the endeavors that we've went on. We've worked together on my foundation. You've supported me a lot on my initiatives. You attend 90% of the things that we host at conference level. And with that friendship and with that everything, even now I was telling my partner, because they'll be like, which one? But I was telling somebody who was asking me if I'm worried about the interview or not. I said, no, I'm not that much worried. Because it's not the first time he's in my hood. Even now there are people in my hood that ask me about him. With that being said, with the closeness of whatever and obviously all of that, there comes a time in the organization where I form part of the people that are very critical of your leadership. I form part of, and I'm not going to even speak about the people. I'm going to speak about myself and the impact and the contribution that I had. I now join the mentality of being too radical without actually sitting down and having your thought. I saw President Mashishi posted this the other time, that before you say something, let it pass through these three gates. Is it true? Is it necessary? And is it kind? It's only now that I get to learn that. Before I was all power to Facebook, but with our friendship, like you've been to when I was area president, surely you've been, I don't know, to 70% of my area sessions. I've invited you to speak at my high school, stuff like that. Me and you have done a lot of and now I come now as a person that is saying, I don't think you actually deserve to still stay. I come as a person now that is saying, that is criticizing the wrong or the bad things that we assume are happening more than the good. At that time, how do you view me? When this little brother has become this, what's that view? Hello, my name is Kanatamo. This is my brother, little Satan. When I become that little Satan, how do you view me?
I was confused. But, and I hope we'll be able to clarify the entire situation. But to answer this, I was confused, and to what Mesh said, my Afrikaans teacher in high school, Freud du Plessis, she'd always tell us, the first thing she ever told us when you got into class, this was when I matriculated in 2013, you can do the math from there.
No, they did the math.
They did the math a long time
ago.
But she often said, I went to an all boys school.
Yeah.
But she'd always tell us, guys, this is a very wonderful space. But we can talk about anything and I'm very free. I might be a Tani, but I'm very free. But it must pass through these things. You must think before you speak. Is it true? Is it honest? There's a difference between
there is a difference.
Is it insightful? What you are saying, will it build someone? Is it necessary? You can go without saying it. And is it kind? And so that's a principle that I took 11 years ago. It's a principle that I took everywhere I went, to always think, or to try and think. So when all of this happens, I think to myself, as any older sibling would, he's a part of a cool crew. So
cool guitar.
He's a part of he's a part of the cool crew. So being complimented and so now it gives him the strength to be able to say, Gina. But I was hurt. I was confused more so than anything, but I always knew, and this is the thing, Martin Luther King, in one of his sermons, he speaks about good and evil people, and he says every evil person has capacity to be transformed into good, same way that every good person has capacity to do an evil thing. And so for me, it was this notion, at the moment, this is what he thinks, and that's okay. Because you also need to allow someone to be able to develop their own thoughts and understandings and all of that. It hurt, but I never lost hope because I understood and knew that most of the time, from what I got to know from 2019 up until that point, there was always good intention staged. And sometimes good intention can take a detour. Yeah. But I think for me it was that notion of there's still that I don't believe that the goodness that came from everything that was done from 2019 up until then when we met was lost. And so that was the saving grace in all of it, because there's still the potential, there's still the gift.
Because it was a very I at that particular time, this is not about me, but at that particular time I had moved away from a certain people and joined obviously a certain people. And funny enough, you don't know, the friendship of that group, well, one thing about me, I don't really care. The truth is the truth. The friendship, how it ends mostly because we sat down and had a conversation. It ends because of your name. It ends as we don't trust you because of, after everything and whatever you've bashed him, like you've bashed Mosuwe almost every time. Yeah. You've went to social media to be critical about the administration and all of those things. But he still picks up your call. He's still in touch. So that was some kind of an insecurity from their side to say, we really don't think that we could trust it. But it was a testament to me that the friendship is actually more than what I thought it was. Yeah. Now, I just wanted to, I was just curious to know what you actually thought of me at that time. Because we did some things that were sharp. Now, I'm speaking about a time whereby you've led the organization in one of the most difficult times. I believe no other president has served the organization at such a difficult time. I make a comparison of you to a President Mapike, if I'm honest with the surname, which is the first district president. Yes. I make that comparison because of, imagine being the first to start. And imagine being the one to continue when everybody else, when the situation doesn't allow you. Yeah. So you go through that, you take the organization through that, and we get to a point where we say, you're old. We want you to leave. And when all of that happens, we go to social media.
Yes.
You're old, hey, leave. The constitution says 26 you must graduate and stuff like that. Or is it because of you're coming from this and that family? Those are the things that we say at that time, and I'm part of these people.
Yes.
Those are the things that we say. 2022 LTI, the spiritual saga just passed, right? This happens, and I'm sure your mind is like, not again. Take me through that emotionally. So I have only 2 questions to ask about that, because I believe that was something else in your life.
Oh yeah.
Remember how you looked at I won't say us, how you looked at me when we came to the strategic symposium
in January.
In January.
Yeah.
But take me through that. How are you feeling when? And it seemed like the entire organization was saying step up, but it was not. It was just a few popular people that were generalizing the opinion that we had. And I said, I'm part of this.
Yeah. And
how do you feel?
I've always admired your candor, and it's something that I hope you never lose. So I told you that I hated social media from about 2014 going forward 2015 or and maybe this is going to be a lengthy answer, but I hope people will come. The first time I ever got onto a plane, and I hope this will make you understand to get to the answer. First time I ever got onto a plane was 20 years ago. I was in grade 3.
Yeah.
Going to the general conference in Indianapolis, Indiana, where we elected the class of 2004 as bishops, who our current bishop forms part of. At 8 years old, I had never been outside of the country. I'd been to other provinces via the car, but that was my first time on the plane. And I understood at that time, at 8 years of age, 1, the general conference is the biggest gathering of the church. So you see, I only knew my church from, this angle. Now I'm seeing this big thing and I'm like, wow,
is this the same?
This is it? And at 8 years old, and I'll never be able to tell you why, wow. But at 8 years old, I always knew that which was afforded to me by my parents, and it's obviously something that came through them having to save and all those other things. That which was afforded to me by them puts me in a position of privilege, but it's a blessing. And what it is indicative of is that in everything that I do, I must be the same, big or small, to other people. And it was then in July of 2004 that I made the decision that as far as I'm concerned, I will do all that I can to make sure that I give the best of myself to this thing, because this thing brings young and old together. It brings rich and poor together, and it brings university educated and high school educated together. So what does that mean? That the power of humanity comes from this organism known as the church. And that was then, literally 20 years ago, where I decided that this is what I would make form part of what I do, my contribution back. And so that's everything. I'll be very honest with you. There is no church meeting, you name it, I've been to it. Connectionally so, and I've been blessed by that. But each and every time, it's always been around the notion of ensuring that I come back to plow. So we get to this point. No, even prior to that, I decided to run in my home conference for office. That is circa 2016 or so. That was a very challenging time.
You were running for first vice?
No, president.
For president,
And social media goes and pits, and this is the thing that I've always said to people, an election is not people against each other. It's two people who have who have a vision, but see that in different ways. But no one is anyone's competitor. So social media goes and makes myself and the other candidate opponents. And that then creates a massive thing. And from that comes the notion of, oh yeah, because of who his parents are, because of X resources, he thinks that, they think that. So already things start brewing from about 2016. So by the time I get to 2017, I'm the first vice, there's still issues around who the hell do you think you are, first vice of the Episcopal. Then come to 2019 where you want to run for president. Yeah. Same thing, who the hell do you think you are, whatever, but you keep going. But at any point in time, the one thing that I never did was say anything back. So now come 2022, which people used as a mechanism, the spiritual debate used as a mechanism to then lambaste us, because that's what they did with the administration. To now all of a sudden, from what was said, now it's an issue around what we did or failed to do or anything of the sort. Sharp, fine. Then 2023, well, end of 2022, going into 2023. What people don't realize is, yes, and I was aware, but it's that human dignity thing that people forget. Exactly. Somewhere. We came into COVID, and I relish the compliment, because I ideally from that founding presidency of President Mapike to his successor, the late President Dennis Moraki. That was the 19th. So for those that don't know, the 19th is 40 years old in its formal conceptualization. It was in 1984 that it became a thing. Prior to that, we were all a part of the 15th. And so as the 19th came, now you are dealing with trying to organize young people. This is before it's fully known that our organization would be from 2 to 26. So you've got a number of people who are still trying to organize themselves. You're still trying to organize the district. So everyone is a young person by that time, back in the day. So we then find ourselves in a similar situation of, we've been hit by the COVID-19 pandemic. Churches are shut down and all those other things. So now we have to find ourselves trying to survive in a situation that's unsurvivable, if I can even use such a word. And you come to various realities. So 2020, we get in, we're like, we're gonna have conventions virtually, let's make the most of it so that the organization has a semblance. Whatever happens, the organization must still be able to have a semblance of continuity. So let's not take it for granted. Virtual elections, mind you, we were the district and the organization that actually pioneered, if you will, because other districts at the time, certainly outside of the continental USA and even in the continental USA, had not bothered to think how they would actively go about it in that space. But we did that, and as a result, other districts or other conferences followed because of what we were able to do. So we hold our elections and we do the virtual programs and everything. Come 2021, and not everyone was excited about that, mind you, but we had to do it because why? The one thing, and this is how I've always approached service, I'll never be a leader that comes to my followers or my team with a problem. I'll tell you about the problem, but I'll also tell you what I've thought about it being what the solution will be. That's not me. And so then the consultation becomes based on the solution. How do we make the solution better? Because I believe that members should not worry themselves about the problems. We must alleviate them of that. So 2020, after consultation, we agree we're doing virtual elections. Everyone, presidents, you guys are running. Yes, we are. The people are running. Some people are pulling back, but there are people who want to, okay, cool, great. We follow the process. We have the virtual consultations. We do all of the elections are held via election. But yes, like, I remember that thing cost us an arm and a leg. One virtual election was like 900 Rand. But we did it, nevertheless, great. And because we also wanted to make sure that we still keep the principles, because it was uncharted territory. So we didn't want people to now think that things were scammed or whatever. So we made sure that we try and find the most accurate thing that can work, because the Zoom polling thing was a little uncontrollable. Fine. we move on. Now, when I ran in 2019, if there's anyone who knew their age, I knew very well that by 2021, it's chai. It was like, Mototo retire. I know 2021 is my year. 2021 comes along, and about June, we lost a couple of young people by then. Like I say, by April of 2022, when we were at the connectional LTI, we had lost 14 people, the highest number since our election to that LTI. The 19th had the highest number of young people lost in those years. And so we get to 2021, and then call the presidents again, guys.
This is the famous call that supposedly didn't happen.
So we call, and because I'm very aware of things, and with the things that I've been through, you get tired with your name being dragged, because I'm human, Presidents, here's the situation at hand. We've had virtual whatnots, and we've done all those other things, but we're supposed to now go into convention season. By that time already, virtual programs had taken a dip in terms of every conference, in terms of participation and whatever. Presidents come and tell me that people are zoomed out. Fair enough.
Zoomed out for them to zoom in.
And fair enough. I mean, there were days where, outside of doing whatever YPD related stuff, from a tech team perspective, I'm helping this organization. There was a day where I literally, between Saturday and Sunday, I talked about 36 hours. In 48 hours, I talked about 36 hours cumulatively of Zoom in one weekend. So I knew what being zoomed out was about. So we then go and have this conversation to say, Presidents, this is the situation at hand. At the time now, though, or a little later on, churches were now going to allow some form of, there was a time where our prelate would then be like, okay, you're allowed to worship, but it has to be outside. Fine, but here's the challenge. We have to have conventions. We can't necessarily do them physically and all those other things, but we need to know what's what. This is supposed to be the last elective year prior to the year where we would elect delegates to the quadrennial. What's happening? Conference A, I don't have any presidents, I don't have area presidents, they've all gone silent on me. Even my executive is just, Conference B, same thing. Conference C, all of them, same thing. One conference is like, there's people who, right now I'm working with like 5 members of the executive. At some point, literally at that point in time, there's no president, myself included, who had a fully fledged executive, because people were just out of it. The loss, the emotional, we were in trying times. So what do you guys say? Literally, I say, what do you guys say? I'm at the end of my tether and my rope, because I must go up.
You're not the only one.
And I'm not the only one. And I'm very aware. And I come to the fore with that knowledge already. Because it's like they say, when you preach, when you talk, if something cannot come from a space of experience, there's no point in it. I am here, this is where it must be chai. At that time, we haven't had an LTI. The only event we had was the strategic planning in March of 2020, February of 2020. So beyond that, I'm like, I'll be
what did the president say?
And the president say to me, President A says, so everyone says there's no people.
Yeah, there are no people.
Right.
Yeah.
So what do you guys say? Can we have elections? Can we have conventions? Yes, we can have conventions, and we can try and make them. Now the hub system was put in place because of annual conferences. We can have them, but we need to find a strategy to bring people back. So maybe if we have hubs for the convention, so people can at least, be together or whatever. But we can't have elections because there are no people, even in the churches. People are not even going to church because, we found other things to do now. So going to church on a Sunday is like, right? So presidents, what are you saying? The first suggestion is, okay, let's have conventions, but possibly we would then need to have elections at a later stage. Do you understand the implications? When you say a later stage, when is that? Because you need to have a time frame attached to these things, because if you don't have them, then it means that we're going to continue. So what is it? Are we choosing abeyance of elections so that we can have revival and reintegrate into the system and call people back and build from the bottom up, or what? Yes, President. Well, President, some of us might feel a little otherwise. Ideally, there are no people. So on the premise, then there was a suggestion, okay, but then let's have the elections. So let's have elections at Episcopal. Okay, we can do that, but who's going to elect at Episcopal if you've already said that there are people at conferences? There's no one, right? President, go back, go and consult.
Oh, the famous consulting.
So what do? Director, President, we go and speak to our supervisors, I guess, because even at the top we still have people A, B, C, D, E. And what makes the issue even worse is the fact that there are a number of us, not myself, half of the executive, which then translates to half of the executive board. It's Chai. No. Well, let's then go and consult your organizational higher ups. We get to the organizational higher ups. Oh, mind you, by the way, even from the consultation, right? So we have the first conversation. After the first conversation, it's presidents, go back, speak to your people, and find out what is what. Because I also don't want to go and say, we don't want them to say that you all made a decision for them without them having had a say so. Bye-bye. Consultation, because I never made decisions. So I could have if I wanted to. I mean, what are you going to tell me? I'm the Episcopal president.
True.
But I'm not in this alone. Go find out what's what. They all come back. President, it looks like if we can have conventions in hubs so that at least people can come together, we'll put them in abeyance. Abeyance to me, because abeyance is 2022, and then we know what happens in 2022. There can't be any elections. And now you see we're making the most out of a unlikely and unpleasant situation, because now it's a matter of, and some might say, but then you define, it was an abnormal circumstance, and we were trying to still be normal in an abnormality. So we go and consult our higher ups in the connectional leadership at this time. And the connectional leadership tells us that the problem that you have in the 19th is a problem that's everywhere. They even tell us the fact that you guys even had a first set of elections. Props to you guys. That is amazing. Others isalid banostaka. See. So what is then said? The decision remains in the hands of the Episcopal leadership. So at this aspect, the bishop and the supervisor. However, as connectional leadership, ours is saying, let the focus be reintegration into normalcy. Let the focus be this, and let us just push our way to 2023 quad, and then things will go back to normal. Mind you, at that time, it's not an issue just in the 19th, it's an issue literally across all 20 districts of the church. So much so, some of the people that I was serving with at a connectional level were age mates, but we had to see it through. Come back, consult, okay, what are we saying? Okay, presidents, president, our people say, as long as we can have hubs, as long as we can meet, but let's put everything else in abeyance. Is this what you guys are saying? Okay. What did the higher up say? The higher up said this, that, and the other. Okay, if that's the case, then go present it to your people and go forth. If there's a vacancy that you must fill it as you see fit.
Yeah.
And then
that remained a very controversial issue, because it's too long also for us to get into detail. We'll find ourselves lost in the conversation, and we've passed an hour now. But
It's a 2-part special.
Yeah, I think so. That's a way to bring you back. But when you're going all through this, it was difficult.
Oh, definitely.
Because there are certain things that happened that I didn't tell you. That happened in the background. While I was still wearing my Mkhonto Wesizwe Party regalia that was so militant before I joined the economic emancipation movement. Jokingly so. But there were extreme things. Like there were things that were planned that were like, when I took a step back, I remember we were in, where was the strategic symposium?
Parktown.
We were not in Parktown, we were somewhere close to Parktown. And when everything was happening, I thought to myself, there's a moment I went back and I was like, no, man, not this way. And I'll be honest about it. Another thing that happened was that with everything that would be planned, Maloyi will be pushed as the forefront. But that is
old, of course.
Yeah, I know.
That is
that. With whatever that happened, I now just got somehow, because of I'm imagining literally the things that were being planned.
Yeah.
But with all that being happening, we have this because we know it on social media. Very beautiful sister of mine, your partner, Sister Khonze, got the privilege of also being with her and doing a few things also with her. But we know that the longest relationship, your things are old, man. If you're not old for the organization, your relationship is long. But and also respectfully so, I'm not trying to bring her into the conversation unless you're not comfortable with. This is the person that you've been with for the longest time. She's not a member of the AME Church, right? She's not a member of the YPD. And here's this guy called the president coming home with a heavy heart, being hurt by this very same place that they call church and this very same place that they say they're serving. How does that affect your relationship? Because there were times where we would get YouTube videos and sometimes we would not get YouTube video. You understand? How does that affect your relationship?
I'd be lying to say that everything that happened didn't. It affected not just that, my personal relationship with my partner. It affected my relationship with my siblings, with my family. I remember a friend and who I served with actually saying, I hope one day we'll get the Tlhogi that we know and love back. Just randomly texts and says, because you are doing it, but we know that it's not you. And I remember telling her, and she said, I don't know if that Tlhogi is still there. I don't know. So it affected, because every other turn, and if there's one person, there's so many people in my orbit, in my space, from my family to the director who's my other mother, so many other mothers, everyone saw it, but this is one person who saw it the most. And I remember she said, I don't know if they'll ever get that Tlhogi back, because I don't even know if you yourself know where he is. But it affected so many things. And now I'll tell you this. I lost a friend of mine, a very close friend of mine, in January of 2018. That death rocked me. He took his own life. And that death rocked me, and it plummeted me into a, really unpleasant time as far as my mental health is concerned. I was now prone by panic and anxiety attacks and all of that. But I took that and tried to harness it into the programs that the organization would do. That's why in the LTIs we'd have those breakaways and we'd have the heartlines things, because I was trying to use the program as a way to heal myself. And being the big brother, if I'm going through this, there's things that whoever going through, and if I didn't have someone, because I believe that I didn't have someone, I need to be that someone for them. And so we have a conversation the one time to say, in the midst of all this hurt, how does this serve you? And it became a contentious thing because there was a time where literally I remember talking to a friend of mine and being like, yeah, I think it's tickets, I think I should just. But then I remembered there was a time where someone told me that had it not been for our virtual platforms, they would have never known Zoom etiquette, and they got a job because they had Zoom etiquette because of what we did. Someone told me that prayer meeting that we had was the difference between them deciding to end their life or not. And it was only then after she asked this question, and so it affected us deeply, but it affected everyone in my family and everything, because I mean, how do you think it is you're seeing Mbanabakwai, they're seeing my name there? And it sucks because not only that, now you're making it personal, you're talking about my parents. Where do they enter? And this is where you see that the issue then stopped being about the principle, but it was about the individual.
Married long time.
It was about the individual. It's like my good friend Mesh always says, they Musuwe-fied the situation, because like you say, it was about, there were others.
It ended up being better.
And so I'd be lying if I say it didn't affect. It affected my mental health severely.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is I came into service as someone who was already broken, and the space that was supposed to build me continued to break me. But I had to show up, and that's the thing. You're not allowed to show weakness. You're not allowed. You have to show up. So I came into service broken, but I wanted to use that brokenness to be a form to heal and be, for example, when my friend took his life, it was on a Saturday where we found out, and we were at local YPD practice, and then we were practicing this song, Kumbaya. It's sung by the Soweto Gospel Choir, and the lyric or their rendition is, somebody's crying, Lord, somebody's praying, somebody's in despair, someone feels like no one cares, but I know you'll make a way. And so in 2018, I made a vow to say that I will not allow the platform and what I've been used to be. And when we had to sing that song on the Sunday, again, I broke down crying, because I felt my friend felt like someone could not be there. And so I used that brokenness to kind of fuel how I would serve. But I made that vow to say no one should ever feel in despair ever again whilst we still have the opportunity. But lo and behold, I was the one who was in despair.
And you say that you got into the organization. Let me just try and close. You say you got into the organization broken.
Yeah.
And the organization broke you even further.
Yeah.
I think it built. Oh, yeah, people, not the organization.
People, not the organization. I always tell people.
And how do you leave? How do you leave? When you left the organization, what was the last feeling that you had?
So.
And don't talk about the convention, your last convention, because there's something I'm going to read. We're coming.
Okay, all right. So when I leave, I feel sad, but I also feel relieved. But when I leave with the notion and the understanding of how I came into service. Because, I obviously joined the organization 17 years earlier, so 2006, but really only, and then service began locally and then at a higher level from about 2015. So I came in still believing, and that's why we never changed the notion of the power of us climb higher, reach further, believe. So I was happy that pieces had been taken away. Well, I wasn't happy that pieces had been taken away, but I was happy that in spite of those pieces being taken away, at the end, I left still believing in the power and the possibility of what it could do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's kids who came in, we found them, Okerekeng and other spaces, who could not even read at a basic comprehensionary level. You know, you're 16 years, but you can't even read properly. Today, those kids are in their locals, the worship director, the president, they can run worship experiences in the church. They have confidence. There's kids who read really too, so when you ask, get class or that class, and they can't speak. These kids can now speak in front of hundreds at a seminar and whatever. So it was those things that left me still believing.
That's totally incredible. I want to read some of the things that, as we close up, sure. Right. This story has been disturbing me now. I'm going to read some of... The first one comes from a very great brother of mine, Tata Masitela, from the Orangea Conference, Area 4 to be specific, in Sasolburg. He says, I must ask you this question. How do you do it? Simply that. How do you do it?
Hectic. First answer. And it's the man upstairs. And I don't say that because I'm a believer and it's the generic thing to say. I say it because from him all good things come. And as a result of that, he blessed me with a loving environment, a faithful environment. So this is talking to all those in my immediate circle, my family, my partner, my friends, everyone who's close to me. People who, near and far, who are praying for me that I did not even know were praying for me. People who, just by seeing me, are able to speak life. So I do it through him because he blessed me with the support structure, with the love, with the prayers, with the and so I say him because everything came from him.
That's
literally it.
I almost forgot this one. Is it true that there are people that bashed you in public, especially on social media, and came secretly to you to ask you for assistance?
Oh yeah, no.
Especially financial.
Oh no, definitely. And that's the funny thing that people will never tell you. So you talk about this thing and then it sucks. So the moniker that's been given to my family and I is that we're Guptas. Some have even called our place of residence the White House, not just because of its color, it's off-white, but because of what they are trying to say, young and old alike. But the thing is, if you had to look at what one has benefited, because in order for someone to be a Gupta, is I give a resource to be able to gain something, to gain power, to gain what has been gained. You know, we're not one of those, but what have we gained? But the same who say that would come, and I would never.
Yes. How would you get like one call from this person and
and that's the thing. Some unashamedly, payment need to go here, there, or whatever. Others literally, and like I say, the thing for me is, I've been afforded so many blessings, right? And the nature in which I guess my family and I minister is the fact that if you get given something, it is incumbent upon you to give. When you get, give. When you learn, teach. The pay it forward principle. And so that's how we work. Because
when I heard that, I was
it's a genuine thing. There's been people who would ask for a number of things, and
at the same time, while bashing you,
the same person would form part of this group that would.
I need to check my timelines. When did I ask for?
It's that, and it's that thing where you come to realize, but because the principle is kill them with kindness, do good even when things are bad. And I mean, they'll never. The beauty of being behind the phone is that, it can never be traced or people will never know. But yeah, it's a thing. Bash in public, spit in public, but then
humble in private.
Need assistance with this, that, and the other. Need assistance with that.
I wouldn't give them any sense. So from the West Conference, I wouldn't mention the name. Actually, I would. This comes from the West Conference. A lady asking, what was something he believed in strongly at the start of his term that he no longer believed or viewed differently now? I'm sure it makes sense.
What did I believe in?
When I
came in.
But had a different view of it when you left. When especially this person sent me this question, I was like, Dad!
That's a different one. Okay, here's the one thing. So when I came in, right, I always said that the one thing and the reason we did all the things that we did, the venues that we used and how we went about pre-registration, I'd always wanted the 19th to be a preeminent force in the greater connectional space for the 19th to visualize themselves. You know, everyone talks about, hey, we must host a connectional thing. How are you?
With which capacity?
With what capacity if you don't already believe it and see the reality thereof, right? Let alone the fact that we covered, from a financial perspective, we did well, but we also strangled ourselves because we covered a whole lot of the costs just so that things could be decent, you know. But the one thing I always said is I've always wanted the 19th to believe and see themselves in the way that I did.
Yeah.
At some point, I thought the 19th grasped that, and I thought that they are seeing it. At the end, I still thought that they would see it. But the one thing that I believed then and did not believe when we left is I don't think the 19th or the young people know what they want. I used to think they do.
Now you don't think so.
Now I don't think. But not all hope is lost.
So that is the answer. I'll just only do one last one. I'm chasing time.
Amazing.
Also coming from Orangia, how has it been after... Oh, this one comes from the president himself in Orangia conference.
All right.
President Mabuya said, I must ask you, how has it been after the YPD? How are you continuing, adapting, and how are you, well, basically to put it, how are you doing? Is everything well? Is the continuation of you striving for a better life even after the organization, is it still the same?
Yes, it always will be, and as long as there are young people out there, and as long as I have breath in my body and I have the capacity and ability to do something to make someone's life better, I will never stop doing that. It will always be there, because I believe that the highest form of service is that, lifting another up. The highest form of service is the ability to take someone else. If you're the smartest person in the room, if you're the best person in the room, you're in the wrong room. But if you know that you can make the room better, then you know that you're in the right room and you're serving your purpose. And life after the organization, especially when you do what you did or at the level at which we served, and I often say this to people, we took people to school, we gave opportunity, we gave of ourselves, we gave people hope. We
allowed people to actually attend some of the events.
We allowed people to attend events, and those are the events that were that life-changing difference between someone saying, somebody feels like no one cares, and someone saying, I'm a survivor. So we did all of these things, so that to find yourself outside of those things is difficult. I was having a conversation once, and I said, I don't know if I'm addicted to busyness or if busyness is addicted to me, but the organization gave me that. So it's different, and I remember the first time in January, I'm expecting, I'm supposed to be calling Zoom meetings and whatever, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not.
So quiet.
It's so quiet. I actually started using my television in my place. Like, oh, okay, so let me.
It's the work, yeah.
It's the work, yeah. You know, those kind of things. So it's difficult. If you don't, I won't lie and say it's not, because when you it's like an athlete, when you perform at that high level, and then when it all stops, you still keep active, but you don't have that competitive thing.
That's a real thing.
So yeah, it's and I'm still finding it. But what I know is that I'll never be, whether it's in the church or anywhere else, and as long as I'm on that journey of finding it, I'll never be far from making the lives of young people or trying to be a vessel to do that.
Sure.
So yeah, that's how it is.
What's your thoughts? And yes, we are far from polished.
Yes.
Far from pristine. But that doesn't mean we're striving to form an organization that is perfect. We are striving to forge an organization with purpose, to compose a unit committed to all churches, all cultures, characters, and conditions of men. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. And we close the divide because we know we need to put our futures first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down we lay down our arms so we could reach out our arms to one another. I think these, if not their opening remarks, these are the closing remarks that you gave when you read your report at the 19th Episcopal District YPD convention held in 2023 was it Good News?
Machalis.
Oh yes, at Machalis. I read your report during the week as I was preparing. The longest 8 pages, say. 8 pages! Imagine!
That was the short version.
Yeah, and this stayed with me.
Yeah.
Well, we are surely going to have part 2 where we maybe dive into the recent things of the church.
Yeah.
We are far from polished. With this being read, and with whatever that we just spoken about right now, and whatever that we have went through.
Yeah.
If you had an opportunity to say, well, 2 things actually. The first is there anything that you regret? The first. The second one is, which is the last one, if there's anything or a time you are given 30 seconds now, there's the camera, look at the camera and say finally what you've always wanted to say.
Yeah.
Especially knowing the people that might watch this.
Yeah.
If you had to remove the strip of being a Christian, remove the strip of being a brother, a partner, a son, a nephew, and all of those things, and you had to say something that you've always wanted to say, what would it be? But the first one, is there anything that you regret? And if there is, what it is?
I used to think that I regretted not speaking, but I realized that in doing so, I still kept myself. And I never wanted to be something that I would not recognize. So, do I regret anything? Not one bit. Not in the slightest bit. Someone once asked me, and it's where you see that maybe where we are not all too okay. If I would do it all over again, I would, because I think it had to happen so that others don't go through it. It had to happen so that something comes out of it. But I would go through each and every day again, because I know
the insults,
every single one,
the bitterness, the hate,
every single one, because in all of that, there was still someone who said, without us even knowing, you saved our life. Someone who said, you gave me a purpose. A parent who said, thank you. what you all did took my child off the streets. So would I do it again? Yes, because I know that we tried.
If you had to choose the same enemies or substitute them, would you substitute or keep the very same ones?
I would not change a single.
That's it.
Not a single thing.
But there's
And then
the camera.
The camera.
One last thing. If I were to give you 30 seconds and you wanted to say with everything in you, what would it be?
Firstly, thank you. Thank you for making me stronger, even in my weakness. Secondly, I'll never know why, and I'll never understand why. But nevertheless, it's okay, and thank you. Thirdly, even if it will never be said, even if, and this is me just being me, because I've had time to think about this, even if it will never be said, I simply want to say, I forgive you and I release you to God. That's it.
That's all.
That is it. I can't, and I don't even want to qualify this, but it happened. I'm still standing. To the excitement of others, to the disappointment of others. But
that's it.
That's it.
Leadership, thank you so very much for taking your time and coming to be with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that. But lastly, I want to say this now.
Yeah.
I'm not sometimes as kind as you. So I can say it. I'm sorry for the hurt that I caused you. I'm sorry for the ignorance that I portrayed at times that I needed to not be ignorant. Do I regret anything? No. Because if I say then I do regret something, it means then I do not appreciate the lessons that I got from it and to where I stand now.
Yeah.
Am I proud? Some of the things, no, not really. There were times whereby I would go to an LTI already with the mentality of need to show them who we are. But God's presence would slap me the minute I arrived at the gate. And actually, me and Brother Khauruti Moabi had this conversation where we went to one of your LTIs already fuming and going and was ready for everything. And the minute we arrived at the gate, we were met by a certain amount of grace that was unparalleled, that we could not even hold ourselves. And we went to Facebook and said, we wanted to do this and this and that, but we couldn't because of simply of the spirit that was there. Those are the things that I learned. My relationship with President Khoduma and President Masheshe has become such an incredible thing that even now I say, I thank God for the people that I lost and for the ones that I got. And that is my apology to you, to say I'm sorry that I had to go and finish my inheritance and get to feel how does it feel like eating with the pigs. And coming back home and still finding you with my robe ready and a ring and a pair of shoes, just like the father was with the son. I appreciate that a lot. I'm a flip-flopper, I've changed tunes because of McDonald's or whatever. But my point is, I'm at peace where I am. There's progress in my life because of the decisions that I have taken. And I personally thank you from the bottom of my heart for the efforts that you've put in my foundation, for the efforts that you've put in my company, the efforts that you've put in my servanthood and in the ministry that I'm called in. Now I stand as the first vice president of the Great East Conference, not only because of maybe I'm handsome or popular, whatever, but because, or you're laughing at the fact that I'm handsome.
You have to be your own star player. Right? So no, keep at it.
But simply because of the giants that have paved the way through me. And I'm proud to say it, you remain one of the best people thank you so much.
Thank
you very, very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man.
I'm seeing that thing. I think